So folks, you're here for Legal Services of Northwest Jersey's presentation tonight about home improvement law in New Jersey. And our staff attorneys are presenting this with the support of Raritan Valley Habitat for Humanity. So we have Mary Ellen Kosh-Fleming and Jessica Abbott here on behalf of Raritan Valley Habitat for Humanity, and maybe they'd like to introduce themselves and say hi.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mary Ellen, and as Carol said, I'm a volunteer with Raritan Valley Habitat for Humanity. I'm also a member of the board of directors of Legal Services of Northwest Jersey. And as you heard Carol say, staff attorneys from Legal Services are going to be conducting tonight's seminar. With Raritan Valley Habitat, I'm chairperson of the Homeowner Services Committee. And we are very happy to be able to partner with Legal Services to present the seminar. We have some of our homeowners on the seminar, but it was open to anyone who wanted to it. And as Carol said, also on the call is Jessica Abbott, who is our Homeowner Services Manager. She's an employee, she's a staff person with Raritan Valley Habitat for Humanity. And for those who are on the call who don't know, Raritan Valley Habitat for Humanity is a not-for-profit that builds simple, decent, affordable housing in Somerset and Hunterdon counties for eligible families. So welcome, and we look forward to it. So Carol, back.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Jessica?
I think Mary Ellen said it all, really, which is wonderful. Yes, I'm the Homeowner Services Manager at Raritan Valley Habitat, and we're just really excited to be co-hosting with you while you put on this really valuable session for all kinds of homeowners, including ours. And it's part of, we really look forward to offering more educational services for our homeowners, and we're really excited to do this with you. Thank you all for doing it.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having us tonight. I'm going to do our little introduction about who we are. So Legal Services, we are a private nonprofit law firm. I'm Carol Spicer, Outreach Coordinator for Legal Services of Northwest Jersey. And our firm provides free legal services to eligible people in certain kinds of legal matters. People apply for our service by calling the phone number that I have on the screen, 908-231-0840. Right now, our offices are closed to visitors, as so many offices are, but we are still working remotely and handling court matters. So while the offices are closed, you may have to leave a message for a return phone call if there's a line for pickup. Eligibility for our services is for people who live in one of our 5 counties. You see, we have offices in Hunterdon, Morris, Somerset, Sussex, and Warren counties. And these people qualify as being with having limited income and assets, or who are over the age of 60. The types of matters we handle are civil matters that are necessary to protect basic essential needs. So I'm going to show you our teams. So these are, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Our teams are housing, public benefits, family law, planning documents, that's wills and powers of attorney, and our consumer team. Credit, debts, and assets. So our consumer team, people who enter contracts to purchase or to finance things and services for themselves or their families are consumers. People who use bank accounts and credit cards are consumers. People who incur student loans or medical debt or owe rent are all consumers. We're all consumers. Our team may also assist in restoring significant assets that are taken from vulnerable people as a result of exploitation. So these are the kinds of matters in which we may offer advice, negotiation, or defense in court. I wanted to say that we're not here on the prowl looking to attract contractors. We don't sue people. The matters of the matters of consumer fraud and home repair contractor situations come up as defense when a creditor, a person, or a business to whom you owe money comes after you to collect in court.
Carol, can I interrupt for just 1 second?
Please.
If you were planning to share a screen while you were talking, we don't see it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, let me go back and do that. We have the wrong screen, I see. Gotcha. There we go. Better?
There it is. Yep.
There it is. All right. Thanks for letting me know that. So here was our phone number again. And my email, if you have questions about this presentation, or if you need help applying for services. Here were our teams. And here, our consumer team handles all of these matters. And some of the defenses can also include bankruptcy. I think that one is left off here. So I wanted to say, like, our business is preserving our clients' income and assets to the extent possible and educating the public to avoid loss. So that's why we're here tonight. Before we begin, things to know, what we'll do, if you have questions to ask, please do feel free to ask them at any time in the question and answer box. We'll try to have an opportunity to respond. We are recording this webinar, so we will not be sharing your video camera or your names with questions. It's very important when asking questions to be mindful that our answers will be general answers to general questions, because confidential information should not be shared in your questions or any information specific to your case. If you need a specific consultation with an attorney, you may contact us to apply. So again, this visual aid is for informational purposes only. It's not legal advice because the law is always changing. And legal advice depends on your circumstances and the facts of your situation, which you would have to present to a lawyer directly who could consider the law and the facts and advise you properly. Your attendance at this presentation does not make you a client of Legal Services of Northwest Jersey. And I say that to protect you, because unless you were a client, your information cannot be subject to the attorney-client privilege, and it wouldn't be confidential. So that's why, again, I urge you not to share that information. So I do want to introduce now our team tonight. Gary Silvestri and David Saltzman are our two attorneys here tonight, who are staff attorneys at Legal Services of Northwest Jersey. Gary has years of experience as a consumer advocate. Many times I have been spellbound in the audience as Gary taught consumer law at trainings of legal services attorneys and staff at Legal Services of New Jersey. So I've enjoyed his training for many years. Gary currently serves our clients as an attorney on the housing team and on the consumer team. And David, let's see what I'm doing here. Oops. I'm sorry, David. And David is the managing attorney at our Morris County office. David has done work defending against predatory lending mortgages and has served on the bankruptcy ends of court. And David serves our clients as an attorney on the housing team and consumer team. So I'm pleased to present our talented tag team tonight, Gary Silvestri and David Saltzman.
Okay, I guess I can start out first. So what I was going to do was give a little fact scenario, and then from there, I guess we can go through the PowerPoint. Okay.
Perfect.
First of all, knock, knock. Who's there? Home who? Home improvement. Home improvement what? Home improvement person. Okay. So we have someone knocking on our door asking, do you need some work? And just to give you a little, by a personal viewpoint, that happened to me last week. You know, someone was in the neighborhood saying, we're working on a job down the block. Maybe you've seen it. And it looks like your house can use some siding. And can we give you a quote? Can we do this? So they came up to the door, pretty insistent, wanted to get my name, phone number, to give me a quote or have an estimate, someone come by. So that was a home improvement contractor that came to my door. I didn't come to them. So they knocked on the door. Okay. So let me give you a fact scenario. Okay. And then we're going to look, then Dave and I are going to try to go through the PowerPoint to point some things out. Okay. So you have a home improvement contractor comes knocking on your door. And let's say they say, I'm going to, I noticed your driveway needs some help. I can seal coat your driveway. Okay. and, put a coating on the asphalt so that it lasts long. Okay, it seals up cracks. So they say, well, that sounds good. How much? And we enter into an oral contract that he will do my driveway or she will do my driveway for $900. Okay, so there's no date when they start. There's no date when they end. They start doing the work. And then while they start doing the work, they say, oh, it's going to be $3,500, not $900. Okay. And then what happens is, all right, so I let them, or the person lets them do it for $3,500. Okay. Then when the work is done, it's so shoddy that the inspector comes around, the township, and they say, this is a terrible job. And not only that, there's other things that were wrong here. Okay. So you cancel, you stop the check, the payment on the check. Okay. The $3,500 check or $3,000 check, whatever it is. And then what happens is the check cashing place where the alleged home improvement contractor cashed the check doesn't get to cash it because it doesn't clear because you put a stop payment. And then that check cashing place sells the debt. In other words, they couldn't collect on the check to a third party who's basically a debt collector. Okay. It's been assigned to them. All right. And that person who's assigned to now becomes the owner and the plaintiff. The plaintiff meaning someone who files the complaint against you and sues you in court. And now you've been sued for $3,500 for stopping a check on a lousy job that was done. Okay. So those are the facts. So I guess we could go through the PowerPoint and start looking at some of the things, and Dave and I can talk about it.
And Gary, just to supplement, thank you for your kind words, Carol. I literally did try that exact case on those facts.
Okay, so this is to let you know that when this happens, or when you're dealing, even if they do not come to the door, there are home improvement regs in New Jersey, regulations, okay? And we're going to look at some of those regulations that apply to home improvement contractors and who actually fits into a definition of a home improvement contractor. Okay, so I guess we can go to the next slide. Okay, that'll hopefully the audience can see it, but what's home improvement? It covers so many areas, and the list is in the statute. Okay, remodeling, altering, painting, renovating. It has to do. It can be residential or non-commercial property because it's protecting consumers. That's why it's non-commercial. It's residential. Okay, it can be construction, installation, driveways, sidewalks, swimming pools, you name it, patios, landscaping, fences, porches, windows, cabinets, kitchens, pretty much all this stuff, fire protection, central heating, central air and heating, water softeners, putting that in a house, heaters, insulation, installation, siding, wall-to-wall carpeting, laying down floor coverings, all these kind of things that repairs that would fall under this. So it's quite a large area. Most people that are doing home improvement who are in the field are going to fit under what's called the home improvement contractor. Okay.
And Gary, if I can jump in, I want to point to the second to last one here. It doesn't include the construction of a brand new residence though, right? These are just improvements that are done to an existing home or structure.
That's because there's a law that covers new home warranties. Okay. So it does not fall under this act. Okay. Well, remember our scenario, oral contract, $900. Guess what? It's over $500 If it's a contract for more than $500, it has to be in writing to be enforceable in New Jersey. And not only that, the statute requires it to be in writing. And if it's not in writing and has to be signed by all the parties, it has to have the name of the business and the address and all that, then it's going to be a violation of the NJAC, just stands for the New Jersey Administrative Code. And that's the section that deals with some of the things that we're talking about. So if it's a home improvement contract, it's more than $500, it has to be in writing to be enforceable. Otherwise, it violates the law. Okay. So we can go to the next slide.
We have a question here, which might come in here. This is a question about, like, because of the conditions today, contractors like to do a drive-by quote rather than a formal appointment with a homeowner in person. And, or they've been doing virtual with the homeowner measurements and so on. Does that affect the validity of a written estimate?
Well, it sounds like what you're talking about is a quote, and a quote's not a contract. So it's, you could go back and forth. It's a bargain and exchange. And then when you come up with what the amount is and what specifically is being done and when it's going to start and when it's going to end, that's, and then you have a written agreement because it's over $500, then you have a contract. But going back and forth and bargaining is not a contract.
But the quote is just really a jumping off point where the contractor is going to give you an idea of roughly what they estimate the cost to be. That's all, nothing more.
Right. Okay.
These are more terms of a contract.
Right. Description of what work has to be done, the products and materials. So basically, they have to list all that down in the contract so that let's say you want, let's say, a higher end air conditioner, or you want a nice vanity in your bathroom, and then they put in some piece of junk that they got from a home improvement store. So these things should be listed in the contract. Okay. The total price, and if you're financing, if there's going to be any kind of finance charges, so those are going to be regulated by even another statute. Okay, so you need all this information in there: the hourly rate, the dates and time periods on and within which the work's going to begin, and when it's to be completed by. So it has to have a start date and it has to have an end date. Okay. And here's another thing you have to be careful. They may want a mortgage on the property. You should avoid that, where you're taking out a loan and they secure it to the property, which winds up being a second mortgage or a first mortgage. So you should avoid that if possible. Okay. Terms, they have to give you the total price. Again, all the finance charges, we already did that and when it begins. So we need to go to the next slide. All right. Building permits, normally, from what I understand, most of these home improvement contractors, they should be getting the permits. If they say, hey, look, I'll give you a break if you get the permits. The problem is my understanding is you may result in not having all the remedies that you normally would have available because you, instead of them, got the permits. So there should be a permit. And then also at the end, there should be a final inspection that you get.
And Gary, if I can jump in here, two things. By the contractor obtaining the building permit, right? It's important that offers you additional protection. If you obtain the permit, you are the responsible party for closing out the permit. And so when the contractor gets the permit, they have to close it out, and closing out means that they have to get the municipality in to inspect the work, whatever work is necessary. And I think that's really important.
But you need that final inspection, and you need to certify it so that it's passed. Okay, so we go back to our scenario. We don't have any written contract. There's a required written contract. Also, home improvement contractors are required to be licensed in New Jersey. If they are not licensed, they are illegal. okay? So in our fact scenario, the home improvement contractor was not licensed. Some of you may recall when Superstorm Sandy hit, there was a flood of contractors that came in from out of state. Some of them did work. They took money, maybe thousands of dollars. Some of them took money and did no work and left the state. And then you could not, it was difficult finding them. Those contractors were not licensed. They were illegal. And in fact, I remember seeing one on the news that they tracked down in Alabama or Georgia, and they arrested them and extradited them back up to, I believe, New Jersey. Okay, so, it's a crime. It's civilly a crime, and then also there's a criminal penalty, which means you can go to jail as compared to civil. Okay. All right. DoortoDoor Sales Act. That's what this is. Door-to-door transaction. Well, so let's go back. Oral argument. Oral contract. It was over $500. It had to be in writing. It wasn't. Home improvement contractor, supposed to be licensed under the home improvement regulations, was not licensed, illegal. They came to the door. You didn't go to their office. They came to your door. When they come to your door, it falls under the Door-to-Door Home Repair Sales Act, okay? Why? Because when someone comes to your door and they're in your face, you're kind of pressured. It's different when you go to a business and you're there, but when someone is at your door and they're trying to get business from you or to do business with you, you feel more pressure. So why do we have this act? We have the Door-to-Door Sales Act to protect consumers from that kind of situation, because it can result in an uneven bargaining situation where you're pushed into it, okay? And as a result, under the Door-to-Door Sales Act, if you look at the second bullet underneath, okay, you have a 3-day right of rescission, which means you can pretty much cancel the contract. Even after you agreed and signed it, you can cancel it. Why? Because it was a door-to-door sale, and that specific act also applies in this scenario that we had. Okay, I don't know if Dave, you want to add anything or?
No, I'm interested to talk about the Consumer Fraud Act when we get there in a moment, though.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next one. There is a mention in this slide that there's an interaction with the Consumer Fraud Act. So I don't know if you want to tie that in or.
Sure. As we've discussed some of these acts here that are protective of homeowners, certainly there are other acts as well. And New Jersey has a really powerful body of law called the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act. And so some of these deficiencies that we've discussed, that sort of Gary's using in his scenario, where it's over $500 and there's no contract and they're unlicensed and there's no start date, there's no end date. Some of these same factors could be violations of the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act, which offers the possibility of triple damages when someone is a victim under the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act. So there's besides the things we're specifically talking about, there's other bodies of law that are very protective of consumers and homeowners.
We have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, we have a question here from somebody about, again, back to the HIC licensed. Is it easier to escape repercussions if they're not licensed? Is that why so many do it? So I guess it's a question about like, why would they not be licensed?
Well, they might not be licensed because they don't know to get licensed and they're required to do that. Okay. The licensing is a form of a regulation to keep track because it's a consumer protection statute. It's to protect consumers from unscrupulous business individuals. Okay. So there may be a reason why someone doesn't license for that reason. But I think most of the ones that do not license is because they don't know to get licensed. They need to research before they do this. Maybe they should contact, the state division on it, and they will tell them. There's a whole information on what they're required to do, but you have to ask. or they should talk to an attorney before they start their own business. But you know, that's normally why you have a situation where someone is not licensed that I've seen.
Generally, it's just better to stick with a contractor that's going to have this license. If they don't, you have to wonder if they're not getting the licensure that they need. Most certainly, they might be cutting corners on your job or any other job that they do.
Right, and the act that requires the licensing also requires them to carry insurance, so that if something happens, and I believe it's $500,000. I think that was in the PowerPoint, or we might have left it out. So then you know that they're also insured because they're licensed. And if you're saying, well, I'm not sure if they're insured, you can go on the website. I don't know if we have it in the slide. The website, it was posted, but you could check to see, you know, whether someone's registered and whether they have insurance. Should be able to check that also on that website. So if you need to check on a contractor, you can do that. And it's probably a good thing to do if you hire somebody, is to check. I don't know if we have it on.
Is
It's
that
right
the
there.
New Jersey.mylicense.com/verification, right? Yep.
Right, that's probably what it is, that one then. That's what we have in our outline, so. So in any event, we have this Consumer Fraud Act that allows for treble damages. It also allows for attorney fees. What does that mean? Let's say you get into trouble because you got sued. In other words, you had a home improvement contractor that took advantage of you. You get sued. You're not eligible for legal services because of whether you're over income or what otherwise, all right? Then you should probably talk to an attorney that does consumer defense work. Why? Because if the Consumer Fraud Act applies, you can sue for treble damages 3 times, but also the statute allows that if you're successful, it pays for your attorney fees, okay? And normally in the US, the general rule is, the American rule is that everyone pays for their own attorneys. So even if you get sued, you're the defendant, you're the one who's been sued by the plaintiff. If you succeed and say they never should have sued me, you still have to pay your attorney. Why? Because that's the American rule, unless there's an exception, unless the judge orders the other side to pay, or if there's a statute, just like what we have here. We have a Consumer Fraud Act, and it's a fee shifting. It allows for fees, statutory fees, so that if an attorney says, I'll take your case, they ripped you off, okay, and they're suing you now, or you want to sue them. Again, legal services does not sue, okay, but we represent people in a defensive posture, you know, if you get sued on something like this.
Let me just ask for the folks, when we talk about damages, what does that mean, treble damages? What are damages?
So
go ahead.
I'll
Yeah.
take this one. So damages are essentially the money that it cost you, right? The money that you're out. So if in fact in Gary's scenario, where the work was done in a shoddy fashion and you have to have someone else come in and re-repair or redo that work, damages might be the cost that you had to pay a new contractor to get that work done. If the municipality wrote you a ticket, you had a fine there, that might be a part of your damages as well. And so when you add up all of those costs involved to get things right, those are your damages. And you, under the Consumer Fraud Act, you can possibly sue to collect triple damages or treble damages for those costs. So the Consumer Fraud Act can be a really, really sharp tool to use against poor contractors who provide substandard work.
Okay, well, financing, you really should be careful about this. There's, if they have what's called a retail installment sales contract that you have to sign, there's supposed to be disclosures, you know, whether it's, there's some terminology that's in this slide that talk about open end. An example of an open-end credit card or financing is where a credit card's an example where you can keep charging and you can buy goods. So it's open to end, all right? As compared to closed end. What's closed end? You're buying a car. A car costs so much. That's all you're financing. You're not using that credit to buy other things. It's only to buy a car. So a sale for a retail installment sale contract for a home improvement would be closed end. You're just asking, it's for the financing for the home improvement, okay? As an aside, a lot of times it's probably better to try to arrange your own financing through a bank on your own. You'll probably get a better rate than trying to do financing through the contractor who has some third party do the financing for you. So you can shop around on your own and probably do much better.
And if at all possible, you might want to see if you can pay for it from your own cash or other means before seeking out this other financing.
Yes, anything to avoid excessive interest or having to pay interest. Okay, I think we can go to the next one. So we have a summary. Let me just go back to the fact scenario. So the person gets sued by the check cashing place. Well, guess what? Remember what we talked about, the home improvement contract gives you a 3-day period to rescind. Well, that right to rescind, there has to be two forms advising you of your right to rescind. 2 copies of the same thing supposed to be given to you, okay? If you don't get it, you don't know about the right to rescind and you don't even have the form of the right to rescind. So in our fact scenario, we never got a written contract when it should have been in writing. We never got notice of the right to rescind, the 3-day period to rescind. Therefore, the argument here is my right to rescind is still good. And when I canceled the check, I was exercising my right to rescind, even though it was past the 3-day period. Why? Because I never was advised of the right, and it doesn't start until, this is my argument, you know, it doesn't mean a judge would agree with me, but that would be my argument, is that it doesn't, like we said in the start of the slide, everything's fact sensitive, right? And also, you can make the best argument you can make, but sometimes the court may not agree with you, okay? So again, exercising the right to rescind, canceling the check, and then you get sued. And that's what the problem is. There's other issues involved with that have to do with what's called negotiable instrument law. We're not going to talk about that. It's kind of, it's a lot more in depth. So the summary is, again, contract $500 or more has to be in writing. Any changes that are going to have to be made has to be in writing. Right, because the contract's in writing, so the changes have to be in writing, all right, to be enforceable, okay? And also to protect you as the consumer, okay? A description of the work to be done, the products, okay, materials used. It's going to have a start and end date, okay? It has to have the total price to be paid by the buyer, including all finance charges. I mentioned already the time periods when the work begins and when it's supposed to be completed by. And a statement or any guarantee or warranty with respect to the products, the materials and labor is made by the seller, okay?
And if there's a quick point I could make, Gary mentioned change orders, right? So when we talk about this, all this being in writing, the change order is essentially an amendment to that home improvement contract. And so any changes for whatever reason that it turns out you need a new window and you didn't know that, you're going to add it on and you're going to pay for it, but there has to be a change order that gets really attached or connected to that contract in order for the contract to be legally valid and binding from the contractor's perspective. All of those change orders need to be included. And if they're not, it provides some additional protection back to the homeowner. But essentially, we should want all of those changes put together so everybody knows what everything is going to cost.
A lot of people listening probably have seen contracts, or like if let's say you were, you signed a contract for something and it says any changes or additions must be in writing to be enforceable. So you always want it in writing anyway. Why? To protect yourself. In fact, I've always told people, even if a contract does not require writing under the law. So let's say it's a home improvement contract that's under $500. Okay. So technically an oral contract might be okay. If you don't want any problems, I always get it in writing. All right. I always tell people to get it in writing. If it's $200 and you're selling a junky car, it doesn't have to, well, it's going to have to be in writing because you got to send the title over, but put it in writing, $200, no warranty, whatever. You need to do that anyway, even if the law doesn't require it. Why? To protect yourself. And you have a copy signed by the party to be charged. In other words, not charged money-wise, but enforced. So you would get the other party to sign. Okay.
And further, let me just add a point that if you have a home improvement contractor who's sitting at your front door, and if they're unwilling to give you a contract for the work that they're about to do, it might be time to wave them goodbye and close the door on them. It's just not worth it.
That's like a red light. That's a red light going on. If they don't want to do that, that's a problem. Definitely close the door or tell them you're not interested. So
Just say no thanks.
that's it. Just don't throw them off the stoop. Just say no thanks.
Let's just take a moment to see if we have questions from the crowd. And this is our contact information again. And you can find us on all of the social media listed here. We post legal information whenever we can, but I'll just open to any other questions we have. In the meantime, let me ask you, gentlemen, at what point do consumers come to you? When are you seeing them in your office? What happens? How is it that you're seeing them?
So I think I can answer this. I see folks either in one of two spots. Either it is the day they receive the summons and complaint when they're getting sued, or I see them the day after the contractor left their house and they realize what a crappy job that the contractor did. I think those are really the two times. When it's the day after the contractor left, there's not a great deal that we as attorneys can do. However, when they have a summons and complaint in hand, there's more that we can do and better advice that we can provide to them.
I think probably the most of the ones we see are when people are sued. They get the summons and complaint. That's when we see most of them.
And so what should people be doing if they got into something and they see it's going badly now? Like they didn't get the work they wanted, or is there anything to be done at that point?
Besides consulting with an attorney, they could also check with the state or the Better Business Bureau or the state agencies that, it is a regulated industry, home improvement. The consumer, there's New Jersey has a consumer protection phone or hotline, I believe, that you can call for a complaint. So, but you might want to just talk to, also seek counsel.
Now, what if I put all this on my I went to Home Depot to buy some stuff, and then, I got, they're going to come and install it. It's on my Home Depot credit card. Does that change anything if it's like a big box store?
If things go badly, you might be able to return some of those things back to Home Depot. Apparently they take everything. But some of those things you might not be able to return because they've already been used or been installed or something like that. But certainly holding the credit card will provide you with some additional protection in trying to return those things.
Do we have other questions from the group? Somebody asked about whether we would be sharing a copy of the slide presentation. We are not going to, we can't, as our policy, share a copy of the PowerPoint, for a number of reasons, because we don't want people to misconstrue it as legal advice out of the context of having our attorneys here to, explain to you what we mean. And also because the law changes so much, we wouldn't be able to control, where this particular document goes. So we don't share our slides. We are doing a recording, and if it works out and it's acceptable to our presenters, we may post it for a period of time on our YouTube channel, so that if you need to review it again. So I will follow up with all the attendees about that, whether that or some part of it is available. We'll just review the quality of the recording. But we won't be sharing the PowerPoint, but we're so glad you attended tonight. Any other questions from the audience? Is there anybody that feels that they missed an answer? Let me just look here. Oh, let's see here. Oh, here we go. Okay, we do have some more. Again, a question about the insurance. I think we didn't have that line item on there, but the requirement for insurance for contractors, home improvement contractors.
If I can address this a little bit, right? Certainly under the license requirements for a home improvement contractor in New Jersey, they absolutely have to have insurance, right? But even beyond that, certainly just as a general proposition, anyone who's going to come into your home to do work, you certainly want to make sure that they have insurance, and you want to be able to see that insurance so you can verify it. So they absolutely need to be insured from a legal perspective, but really more importantly, just to protect yourselves as homeowners.
And we have a question here about consumer affairs in New Jersey. Are there consumer affairs officers that inspect randomly? So they're talking about whether there's a central New Jersey governance, or whether there are individual counties which have jurisdiction. So I don't know if this is a permit question or whether it's a sort of like a, Better Business Bureau kind of a question. But you gentlemen have a response about resources, governing agencies, regulators?
Consumer affairs normally, from what I understand, is you file a complaint and they'll investigate. It sounds like the question is dealing with the municipality doing inspections of the work, right? Which that's different, and also it's required most of the time that an inspection is required. And a municipality can, as a result, fine someone, because if something is started without permits or something along those lines, it can result in a fine for the for the homeowner. Okay, so that they do inspections. I mean, just as an aside, even in my neighborhood, I know someone that was started putting a door into the side of their house, and the township inspector was driving by and saw I'm working on it, and that was it. He did a cease work order and said, you can't do that. I had some other neighbors that were digging up their water main, which they didn't get anything marked off, and they actually punctured it, the line going in, and that was a big problem for them. That's, you can wind up. So there are inspectors that they come around, and also inspections are required. The other thing that you're talking about is where you file a complaint with a consumer protection, and the state, and they investigate. What they do from there, they have to decide, what happens. I guess if you have something that's egregious, they may, or it's something that's continues going on, they may even refer it to the Attorney General. In other words, the New Jersey Attorney General. So normally when there's a Consumer Fraud Act claim, let's say someone counterclaims, sues back the person that sued you, the contractor, and you raise consumer fraud, the attorney that does that, he or she has to notice the Attorney General, because apparently the statute requires that. I think it's to see if they're interested in getting involved in the consumer fraud action. Because if it's something they probably see that's happening repeatedly or something along those lines, I assume that's why it's there. I've noticed them. I don't know, Dave, if you noticed them, and they never respond anyway. You know,
That's true. Yeah.
I
So
never-
I have noticed them, but they no longer care.
Yeah.
To sort of tag on to what Gary's saying also, it strikes me just with my experience with inspections that generally speaking, the municipal inspector is way more interested in inspecting your house versus the one who's down in Trenton. And so it's more the town and then maybe the county and less so from Trenton. But that's not always the case.
Okay, we have an alphabet soup question. C, F, P, B, and OAG.
Consumer Financial Protection Board and the Office of Attorney General.
I assume it's related to, what you were speaking of.
Sure.
Anyway,
So I
yeah.
think the let me just sort of address this as best I can, is the Consumer Financial Protection Board is very interested in all sorts of consumer issues that relate to financing almost anything. And so the Consumer Financial Protection Board will have an interest in contracts, especially home improvement contracts, which include financing that may be given to homeowners. They don't always. They're still relatively a new agency, and I don't know how much they go into smaller home improvement contracts versus larger financing situations. The Office of Attorney General, they are the attorneys for the state of New Jersey, and certainly if there's the commission of a crime, they could be involved in either the enforcement action, or if someone sues the state, they would likely be the attorneys acting on behalf of the state. I don't know if that really addresses what the question is seeking, though.
They were testing you to see if you knew the letters.
Carol, there are
I
some
got a C+.
questions in the chat.
Yep, I'm getting there. Yeah. So,
Okay.
and we have another question about, is it the consumer's responsibility to ensure that their contractor shows the license? And does the consumer have liability if you're employing someone who's not licensed?
So if I can address this, Gary, I think this is the easiest one, right? So literally under the home improvement contractor regulations, they're required to have their home improvement license number on the side of their truck, on their vehicle, right? They have a commercial truck, they have commercial plates, it's usually a giant pickup truck, and the license is supposed to be on there. And the theory goes like this. So when that individual comes to your house and gives you a proposal of the work that they're going to do, you could and should jot down their home improvement license number, and you can check them out after they give you the proposal to see if they've had complaints, to see if they've had complaints of shoddy work or something like that.
And I always love where the side of the truck says fully insured. Well, that's because you're required by the law to be fully insured. So it's not like they're doing you a favor. They're required by law to be fully insured.
So the
Madam
second part of that question was, does the consumer have any liability if they use someone not licensed?
The problem is it's not liability. It's just that they might have some additional risk, right? If you use somebody who's the neighbor kid from down the street to do some work that may be above his head, if he does it poorly, and then the municipal inspector comes along and gives you a fine and tells you to redo it, you can't seek recourse against the neighbor kid from down the street. The cost is gonna fall upon you. And so it's just additional risk. There's not really a penalty to you.
But this is Mary Ellen. I guess though, if you were using someone, say you were using someone, maybe they're putting up gutters and they fall off the ladder. They have to have workers' comp. So if they're supposed to be licensed and insured, they should have workers' comp. You shouldn't have any liability it should be their insurance that is paying for whatever happened to them on your property while they were doing work there. Now, if you were doing a tree cutting people and they dropped a branch on your neighbor's car, then you would have to, your neighbor could go against them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, so certainly they're supposed to carry a certain amount of insurance. We want them to carry that insurance so it protects consumers and homeowners. But also there's, just to protect yourself, regardless of what happens, we want to make sure that we have homeowners insurance. And if you were able to do so, a blanket policy on top of it, just to cover things like that that may or may not occur, I think is a wise move.
Right, I think we pretty much covered, COIs with additional insured. Does that mitigate risk?
No. It just doesn't. So here's the thing, right? So before I came to legal services, I worked in-house for a home improvement contractor, home builder, right? And so everybody wants the additional insured to reflect every single person who comes onto your property. It is better. It is better when everything goes badly and everybody sues everybody. It is better absolutely to be reflected that the homeowner is an additional insured for this policy. It's not required. It's just not required. I know it makes people feel warm and cozy, but it's not required. And so if they're going to be there, part of their policy, it's going to help. The problem is folks, when they get nervous, they want to see everybody's policy and have multiple insurances from all different sources. And it gets very confusing, but not required.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I think, let me just ask everybody if you learned something. I have a quick poll. I'm going to stop my screen share. I'm going to give you a poll. And I just want to know if you learned anything, and I'm offering input on future topics for future webinars if there are legal topics that would interest you. So I have that up there if you want to just check off your answer. And okay. I see there's some interest. Great, thank you so much. It looks like people got something out of their investment of time tonight. And they're letting us know what they might like to see more about next time. And I can share that your interest with our attorneys and with Raritan Valley Habitat for Humanity to see if there's something that would appeal to their homeowners. Let's see. And we're getting some good input. Okay, great. Looks like people are still answering because I had a number of offers.
Thank you all so much for doing this. I have to tell you, I learned a lot sitting here myself, so I really appreciate this.
Oh, that's great. Thanks so much. All right, I will end the polling.
All right.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Thanks, Gary and David and Carol.
Thanks so much for having
No
us
problem.
tonight. Thank you for your attention. Thanks for some great information, and we'll see you again soon, we hope.